styles cascading rules, actually, some basic rules of cascading. What are the cascading rules and how they usually work? We discussed one point about that. Right. So today we will see the other options. Right. So last session we discussed about the CSS units and options. Yeah. So we learned about the basic cascading related styles and rules also. Now one more option we need to understand. Today we will see that. Yeah. Today we will see how we can deal with the basic rules of cascading. Actually, one option, how the inheritance works, how the specification of the options works, right? Yeah, some basic point I told you, one more time I'm explaining, right? So cascading rules. So we need to understand the basic cascading rules. So in the cascading rules, what are the options and how to work with them? What are the general cascading rules and how do we work with them? So first important is when you are defining the effects, configuring the effects. One basic rule about the effects, which I showed you already. Yeah. So here, one point we learned about this. Suppose we have two headings, means we have a heading style and we have heading 1, so color red, another heading as color blue. Then what happens is it always overrides. That means, so which color is going to apply for this? Which color is going to apply for that particular? Actually, it is going to apply the blue color for the content as per the cascade rules. It is going to apply the blue color. So that means, so first point is here, if a set of effects are redefined for a same element, effects are redefined for same element with the same type of selector, then the last set of effects are applied to element. Then the last set of effects are applied to element. If a set of effects are redefined, actually are redefined for same element with same type of selector, then last set of effects are applied. That's what actually the basic rule is. Syntactically, how you define that? This is an example. Syntactically, this is an example. So I'm adding an example here. Now, which color will apply for this particular text? So for this text, it will apply blue. It will apply blue for it. Why? Because same selector, again redefined, then it will adopt the second one. That is the basic rule, how it actually works. Now, another important point is when you are defining different types of selectors, which selector is more effective? So that means in interviews they ask this actually. That means you have a type selector, we have a class selector, and you are going to apply some effects. So that means how it is going to configure the effects and define the effects actually. For example, one more option is here. Heading 1 color is red, and I applied a class, so dot heading, and this color is some green. Currently, so heading 1 is red color, so heading 1 is using it, and you can see it is applying red color. Now I am applying a class to it, class, that is heading. I am applying class heading. That means now which one it will have the priority? So will it apply the type selector effects, or will it apply the class selector effects? Actually, it is going to apply which type of effects? So it is going to apply the class selector effects, the class selector related effects. So that means the priority is given for the class. That means if element have to choose between type selector and class selector, then it always uses the class selector. It always uses the class selector. That is important. That means another example for this is this one. For every point, I will just give one example here. This is another example. Now this will apply. So color as green, color green. So because it is using the class, it is using the class. For example, I am having an ID hash some effect, and this color is blue. This color is blue, and to this element I am applying. So ID is effect and class is heading. Means ID and class both selectors are applied. In that case, now you can see that it is applying the ID selector. Suppose I move this ID selector after the class selector. That means first class is applied and ID is applied. Even it is applying ID only. That means the point is order dependency is not there at all. Then between class and ID, which one it will choose? So the first priority is given for ID. That means another basic rule here you need to understand is, another basic rule is, if element is configured with both ID and class selector, then always ID selector related effects are applied to element. So that is another option. That means if it has to choose between ID and it have to choose between the class, then it will give the priority for ID. That means here the color is blue. The color is blue. It is going to apply that effect. So that means how it changes and how it configures between the colors, how it applies and configures between the effects between ID selector, class selector and all, because these are the primary things to apply actually. So if both are there, because in interviews such questions will be asked. They generally ask like, if both are applied, which one will work? So which one will have the priority? That's the reason we need to know the priority levels, means how we can configure the priority levels. Is it ID? Is it class? Is it type selector? Which one have the, because these are the three primary things. And if all are defined, which one will work first? So that is one option. Here, one more important point is that suppose in ID, it is using same effect. In class, it is having border as 2 pixel solid. Now in class, one attribute is added extra, which is not there in effect. Then will it apply this border also for that particular heading, or it will apply only this color? That is important. Actually, CSS will allow inheritance mechanism. So extensibility is supported. Now, what happens is the heading color is blue. Border also will be set to blue. So why? Because that means now what will happen here is this heading class is having some additional effect. That additional effect is not overridden in the ID selector. So if different effects are defined in both ID and class selectors, then both effects will be applied. So that means the point is here, one more point you need to know is, if different effects are defined, different, you can say, style attributes are defined in ID and class selectors in class selector and applied to single element and applied to single element. You can say that specific element and applied to specific element. Then if you apply to specific element, then the styles of both ID and the class are applied to element. Then the styles of both ID and class are applied to element. Here what happens, only same name attributes are overridden. Others are not. Only same name attributes overridden. That is important. So that is general important point to understand. So example for this is this. So the example for that is this one. This is an example for it. It is configuring and defining the effect here. That is the example for this option, how we can define and specify the effects. Right. So this is technically important because for fresher level, these type of questions are very commonly asked. So we need to understand which selector have the priority, how the inheritance options will work. We need to know about them, right? Next, important after understanding this, one more key point here is we need to know about the inheritance rules. These are cascading rules. This is cascading rules. So we have certain inheritance rules also. Inheritance rules. So technically, inheritance rules, what are the basic inheritance rules and how they actually work? You can simply say that inheritance in styles in CSS actually. Generally, what is inheritance? So what are the basic needs of inheritance actually? Actually, inheritance is one of the key feature of CSS. One of the key feature of CSS. So key features is one of the key features of CSS. Key features of CSS. Actually, it allows extensibility of effects. Extensibility of effects. So without redefining, we can extend the effects. Without redefining, we can extend the effects. So that is what actually the concept of inheritance is. So generally, how this inheritance mechanism works. So how we define and configure the inheritance. Let's check that. What are the options of inheritance and how do we deal with this inheritance? Actually, CSS provides inheritance properties with several attributes. Actually, it provides four special universal property values for controlling inheritance. To control the inheritance, it provides four different properties. So, and every CSS property will accept these values. What are those values actually? We have inherit. Inherit is one value. Another initial is another value, and unset is another value. We have a revert value also, but revert is not supported on every browser. Not recommended. Not recommended for all browsers. So that is the reason. So we have regularly used three options: inherit, initial, and unset. There is revert is a new one, but it has only limited functionality. That means we cannot have that everywhere. How this actually works, how it is defined. So let's see what are the inheritance options. So how do we configure the inheriting options? Let's see one example how this works technically. So to understand inheritance, so how this works, the main purpose is extensibility, and without rewriting the code, we can reuse the code. The main purpose is without rewriting, we can reuse the code. So extensibility, that means you can reuse a set of effects for any another element without rewriting. That is what actually the main concept is. So technically, how this actually works for that inheritance. Let's see one example. So I will just keep here. I will just keep here some options. Like I'm defining one effect. I'm defining one attribute here. Suppose let's keep some heading. So we are defining some heading. Suppose we have an ordered list, list item. Okay. In the list item, we are defining the options. So para 1. Okay. Another one is para 2. Para 2 and another one is para 3. Some options I have defined para 1, 2, 3. So these are the options we have. Okay. We are defining some effects here. So we said body. For the body, we are defining some color as some green. And you can see everywhere it will be green color. Green color. So that is the effect we are defining. Now we have a lot of other options. We can give so many options. Color green. So we have border. So 2 pixel, solid, something like this. And the body has border also. That is the effect given for the body section. Body section. Now what we are doing here is we are having 3 paragraphs. So class, I am defining para 1. Another class is defined with para 2. And another class with para 3. We are initially learning about this. That's the reason I am showing with some items. Later we will implement in some examples. Then we can create some effects and we can design and we can see how they work really, right? Initially, 3 classes are there. So para 1, para 2, and para 3. Now what we are doing is for para 3 dot para 3. For para 3, so we are defining, technically we are defining for para 3. We are configuring. So what we are configuring for para 3 is we are configuring the color. That is the effect actually, color. And the color we are defining as here, we are defining the color as unset. Unset is one effect. That means for para 3, we are saying that don't inherit the color of parent. Unset means you are saying that don't inherit the color of parent. So color unset, border is also unset, color and border unset. That means it is not using those effects. It is not using those effects. It should not use those effects. That is what actually intention is. That means it should not work with them. It should not work with those effects. We are giving unset. Unset means we are not defining anything. Okay. That means the color is unset and options are unset, border is unset. Then what it will do is it will adopt the parent one. If you don't set anything, what will happen? It will adopt the parent. Parent is color is green. And border, it is not adopting here because it is unset. It is unset because we are not configuring the border here. Now, technically, suppose we are defining the border as inherit. We are defining border as inherit. Inherit means the parent is body. In that it is inheriting, but actually this is a separate selector. We have a separate selector, and even you give inherit, it is not working, because in order to apply the inheritance, we need a parent child hierarchy. That means you have to say that in the body section, the para 3 color is inset, means parent child hierarchies. And if you define that here inside the body, this para is not a child element. Already we learned that. That means it is not a child element, because you are saying this parent child hierarchies. Then usually what happens is, suppose we are configuring for parent child hierarchies, then it should inherit the effects of parent to the child one. It should affect that. I will show you clearly. So technically, in order to understand inherit, you should have a parent child relation. Okay. And body and other classes are not having any parent child relation. Okay. Now we will keep it this way. So I will remove that. And here I am defining some effects. So how you are defining the effects is, actually, suppose there is some content, text content is defined here. So some element we are configuring, right? This is para 1, para 2, and para 3. Now inside this we have a span. This para 1 is defined with a span. So this para 2 also configured with a span or something like this, or you use para, right? Span. 3 options are there. Now we have a child hierarchy, parent and child hierarchy. So what we are doing is, we are defining body and entire body color. So entire body, we are defining color. So color as green. And you can see the body color is green and all are applied to green. Okay. Now we have para 1. So in that we have a span. And how to apply to para 1 span? Means how to access the first one. We are accessing dot para 1. That will access the first list item. In that we have a span. So this span is using color. Color we defined first as inherit. Inherit is 1. For para 2, we have a span, means already parent child hierarchy. Here color we defined as initial. And third one we have para 3, and in that we have a span, and we have color, and the color as unset. So we have 3 inheritance related effects. We have inherit, we have initial, we have unset. For 3 paragraphs we are applying them. And see the effects here. What you can observe here is, one is first one is using. So technically first one is using. So inherit means what happens is, whatever the color of parent color, whatever color of parent is there, that color will be applied. So it is using the parent. That means parent color will be applied to this. So parent color is green. That will be applied to para 1. Para 2 is initial. Initial color means the body color. So that means whatever the body color is defined, that means initial color before the body color is defined. Initial color means before the body color is defined, what was the initial color? Initial color before the body is defined is black. That means the default color, you can say that. Default color is black. That means it will apply that black color here. And for para 3, you said unset. Unset means you said don't define any color. For example, suppose here it is red. Red. That means last one will be red. So why it is not implementing the body? Why? Because it will adopt this one and it will use this value. And if you say unset, that means you are saying that I am not defining any effect for this color. If it is unset, it will adopt the parent. If it is unset, it will adopt the parent. Automatically parent will be applied to it. That means if you don't want to continue the effect, so the continue the value, then what we have to do is you have to use the option as initial. If you give initial, it will be default. Whatever initial values are there, it will keep that initial, right? And if you are configuring the effects, if you are configuring the effects for the parent child, and you want to ignore the effects and use the basic initial level effects, then you have to use initial. Unset, actually unset is to clear all the effects technically. But when you clear all the effects, then the default effects will be applied to it. The default effects will be applied to it. Whatever the default effects are there, it will apply to it. I will show another example. That means how it can define. That means all effects, how we can apply, how we can configure, and how we can apply all the effects. We can see that. For example, suppose this is 3 values, important values. Inherit, initial. So suppose I change the body color to blue, the body color to blue. Automatically it affects everywhere. So that means you don't need to change the value at every place. Whatever the value of the parent will be there, based on that, it will apply everywhere. It will configure everywhere. So it is going to apply the effects. That is what we discussed. So reset, unset means what? Unset means it will not set any effects. When it will not set any effects, what will happen? It will not set any effects. Then it will adopt the parent effects. Understood? If you don't want to apply even parent effects also, then what we have to define? If you don't want to apply parent effects also, then what we have to define? If we don't want to apply parent effects also, then what we have to define? Then what we have to define? So we have to configure as initial. Understood? Right. So that means initial means it will not adopt those effects. Initial means it will not adopt the effects. So unset means clean the effects. Okay, you are cleaning the effects, but at a very high level in the body section, you mentioned it. Suppose if it is not body color blue, it is unordered list blue. Unordered list is blue. Suppose unordered list is blue. That means not for the body color. Unordered list is blue. That means inherit and unset. Unset we dynamically use. I will show you. That means if the body is not there, then what happens? You have given for unordered list. Unordered list cannot be a parent because the point here is unordered list cannot have any color directly. The list items will have the color. That means, for example, I given li. Li is blue, list item is blue. Then everywhere it is applying the same options, right? I will show you. what is difference between unset? Initial means it will apply the default one. So you can use body or this one, right? I will show you that point here. So this is one basic first example. So that means I will give a table to explain that. We will see that. I will show you what is initial, right? Actually, suppose we are configuring some effects in this way, some paragraph. So we are applying some effects in this way. Suppose we have a paragraph. So some text. This is para 1 and another paragraph, that is para 2. Okay, so we are applying here. So paragraph. For paragraph, we are defining some background hyphen color. So background color is some red, okay, some color as some white, and border as 2 pixels solid, something like this. So some green, something border. So we defined like this. Yeah. So black, okay, some effects we have configured. Now important, so everywhere where the paragraphs are there, it will apply the effects. Every paragraph will be applied with that effects. It configures that. Now I'm using here a class for second paragraph. Second paragraph is having a class, and the class is just effects. Okay, I'm configuring here effects, and effects here we are defining the effects. Generally, you may be thinking the value, because previously that is our first example. That's the reason you are thinking like unset is same na, like inherit. What is difference between both of them? Because currently you are applying for only one attribute, That is the reason. Suppose here this is using all is to access all the effects, and we are using these 3 options for all. Suppose we are using inherit. That means for paragraph, already these effects are there. And we are using another effects class as a child of that. And in that all, it is using inherit. So it is defining all the effects and it is using inherit. That means actually it has to access and use the effects. But all indicates, see, here we have so many options. All indicates all of them. Suppose I defined color. Color is inheriting. That means you can see the color is inheriting. So that means color is not applied, for you can see that background color is applied and border is applied. So you can see that border and these are applied. You can apply the effects one by one. Generally, we can configure the effects one by one. Suppose I am defining border as I defined unset. That means you are trying to define individual values. You can see border is not applied. So that means border is unset. That means from the parent it is taking it. And now it is unset. Unset means it is not applying the border effect. For the second paragraph, border is not affected. Similarly, suppose I am defining background color. Background color also I defined unset. So then background color is also not working fine. And suppose color I defined as initial color. That means the initial color is black. It will take use of the black. So generally, unset is to remove that particular effect and define that particular effect. 1 second. So generally, it is to configure and define the effect. When you are applying lot of effects, then all the effects are depending on the parent-child hierarchy level. Then we don't need to define all. Suppose, see, generally, if I write only border, so if I write only border and I say unset, so that means only border will unset. Border will unset. Others will apply the effect. Apply the effect. That means here it is going to apply the other effects. Only border is not applied. Suppose here I said color as unset. Color as unset. That means only color is unset. Others are applied. Only color is unset. Others are applied. So technically it is defining it. Defining it. That means unset is not applying that effect. So background or any. Suppose you are configuring multiple. That means suppose border is applying now. Suppose I say border also unset. Border also unset. Then you can see border also not defined. Right? That means unset means it will not adopt from the parent. It will not adopt from the parent. Understood? It will not adopt from the parent. Right? Unset value will not adopt from the parent. Will not adopt from the parent. Right? So it will not adopt. That's the reason if you want to clean the effects, then what we do is all, then you can simply put all as unset. Then you can see it will remove all of them. And it keeps initial. It keeps initial. Whatever the initial effects are there, it will keep that. So technically, we need to understand how to configure these effects. How do we configure and define these effects, right? So these are the options configuration of effects. Yeah, these are the options for configuring and defining the effects. Technically, how we can manage them. Later, I will show you several more examples because this is not finished. You just learned the 3 important attributes. So now, can you tell me what you understood by the meaning of the word inherit? First point, what do you understood by the word inherit? Inherit means, suppose here I am configuring. So that means inherit, here attribute inherit. Suppose we have color. Color is inherit. So color is inherit. And color is inherit. And background color also inherit. So that means here we are defining the background color or also inherit. Background color also inherit. Color inherits, background color inherits. And border is unset. Border is unset. So what is the point about that? Actually, if you configure in this way, you will have a lot of confusion in understanding this. Why? Because you are writing same effects actually. And every effect are interrelated to other parent and child. Inherit, unset, all these should be used with a parent-child hierarchy combination. So that means don't ever try like all the effects applied on one set of properties. Why? Because this is better understandable when you are individually dealing with the properties. One inherit, another one unset. That is not the right way. From parent, what effects you want to apply, what effects you want to use. So those we need to configure here. If you write one inherit, one unset and others, then you will have a problem. So correctly, what you have to do here is, first point, Here inherit is nothing but it adopts the parent. Inherits means it adopts the parent effects. That is the first option. What is initial? Initial means, what is initial? Initial means it defines the default style. It defines the default style. Unset means it removes the effect. It removes the effect. That means it will remove all the effects. That is what actually unset. When it is removed, then it will adopt the default. It will adopt the default. That is the reason. So when you are configuring initial and unset, they both look similar. Because you are removing the effect. When you are removing the effect, automatically it will adopt the initial. It will use the initial. If you remove everything, it will be initial only, na? That means if you remove unset, then it will be initial, right? These are the three options actually, how they are used and how they are configured. I hope you understood these effects. So three different options. That means why initial and unset looks similar, right? Why initial and unset look similar? So you may be thinking like both are similar because we haven't applied some more effects. We will apply some more effects. So, and we will see while working with CSS related other options, right? So initially, these are enough to understand. Basically, these are enough to understand. Later, we will apply in some examples and we will see that how to handle them. Why? Because to try these examples, we need a set of lot of effects. Then only these options will work properly. Otherwise, means hierarchy, parent and child hierarchy. Otherwise, so little bit of confusion to understand about this option, right? So because sometimes you may think that initial and unset both are same, but actually initial and unset both are not same. When you are applying the effects dynamically, you will understand that more detailedly and clearly. You can see that means how it is going to apply the effects and configure the effects and use them, right? So it is a combination of parent and child hierarchies. When you are using a combination of parent and child hierarchies, then you can observe that happening. So how it uses the effects and apply the effects. So as of now, three keywords are important to understand. Later, we will discuss about the other options and see how it usually does. Actually, you can examine them. So this is one example. Another example for this is, see, another example. That means here effects you want to define all and you set as unset, all unset. That means whatever the effects of parent are there and you are defining all here unset, that means it will remove. When it removes, it will set to all normal. It will set to normal. That means you can clean up all the effects and define the effects. Then it will be like initial only. So that is one option. That means how we can use unset and how you can use here inherit. That means the parent will be inherited. And if you set as initial, then it will set to normal. That means default. If you set to unset, it will remove the effect. If it removes the effect, then obviously it will adopt the parent again. So that's the reason it looks like initial unset and it's look like, so this inherit both are same, but inherit and unset both are not same. Unset is to remove the effects. This will be very helpful when you are working and dealing with the effects dynamically. Because with the CSS and JavaScript, I will show you, Dynamically, we can add and remove the effects. If you want to clean and remove the effects dynamically, then you can try this. So that you will see with some examples, we will try and we will work with those things. You can actually see that these all options are by default used. These all options are by default used actually. That means you open the debugger. So that means inspect the debugger. When you inspect the debugger, at the bottom, you can see the styles are used here. So that means the styles and effects are used here. The styles and effects are used here. So when the styles are used, so the element and its styles are applied here. Elements and styles are applied here. Now you can see that here the margin. So margin is having some 8 pixels. Display as block. And this is defining the effect. This is defining the effect. For body section, that means this is the body related options. And you can adopt this display block margin 8 pixels. You can inherit for other contents inside them. That means for the paragraphs. So you can configure the effects and define the effects. That I will show you how we can configure and define. This is in styles, you can see that. So you can see the pixels, it is configuring and defining. If you want to implement this, actually what we do is for paragraph, I said margin, and margin I'm giving as inherit, margin as inherit. For paragraph margin as inherit. That means you may be thinking like, what is above this paragraph to inherit? Now, can you tell me what it will inherit? It is the primary now. What it will inherit? What effects it will inherit? For parent, I am giving inherit. Is it valid? For parent, I am giving inherit. Is it valid? For parent, we are giving inherit. Is it valid to give? Paragraph. It is valid. It is valid. That's why I showed you this. Why it is valid? Because paragraph's parent is what? Paragraph's parent is this body now. Understood? Paragraph's parent is body, right? Paragraph is body. Am I right? Right, that means it is going to affect that body related effects there. That's the reason you see first paragraph margins adjusted, paragraph margin adjusted. So to how many pixels? 8 pixels, margin adjusted to 8 pixels. I hope everyone understood that point, right? So that means you have to configure that, right? That means it is not like it is given directly to the elements that are visible actually, but body is already having some effect. And if I say inherit, that means if anyone asks like, can I give for the parent? If your parent is not the body and if parent is some other element, then what will happen is it will adopt the body related effects and it will apply the body related effects. Apply the body related effects technically. So that is why we need to know that you can apply this, you can configure this. So the inheritance can be configured and defined for generally these type of options also. That means you can configure and define for parent element also. This is one simple point. That means, so if I apply this effect, that means for paragraph margin inherit, there is no parent for paragraph, but it will take body as the parent and it will apply. By default, body will have some margins. It will apply and it will inherit that. It will apply and inherit. For example, here, suppose in the body, I will define as style margin as 10 pixel, margin as 10 pixel. Then here you can see that this will be inherited by this paragraph, inherited by the paragraph. So that means whatever the body, if you are not defining also, by default body has some effect, it will adopt that and it will use it. All right. So we are just defining the parent-child hierarchies. So unset and initial and inherit. Inherit is simple. Inherit means you are adopting the parent. Initial means default. Unset means remove the effects. If it removes the effects, then all default effects will be applied. So that is the reason it looks like inherit, but actually it is not inherit. We are removing the effects, right? So in another example, we will see how we can manage with them. So these are inheritance related some basic rules you need to know. Right? After understanding, so the inheriting rules, how to configure inheriting rules. So you need to know about, so one by one, all the effects in styles. Now we will discuss about how do we configure and work with an important CSS box model. Means margins, padding, spacing, how they are adjusted and displayed. While learning this CSS box model, we will try some real-time examples now. That means we will take one sample website's screen and we will try to design that according to these effects and options available, right? That we will see in our tomorrow session. So from tomorrow, we can start working with designs and creating our pages, right? Tomorrow, we will continue with that, okay? Right.